At a prestigious Naval Academy graduation ceremony, a 78-year-old janitor in a worn-out suit sat quietly in the family section, clutching a folded American flag. He just wanted to watch his son receive his commission, but two security guards didn't see a proud father. They see someone who doesn't belong. As they physically dragged him toward the exit in front of hundreds of silent witnesses, 6 Navy SEALs in dress white noticed the commotion. They stepped forward, and when they recognized who this janitor really was, everything came to a halt. What happened next shocked everyone at the ceremony. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The ceremony hadn't even started, and Marcus Webb was already being told he didn't belong. He sat in the 3rd row of the reserved family section, hands folded over a triangle-folded American flag, his worn suit pressed but decades out of style. The fabric pulled tight across shoulders that had once been broader, stronger. Around him, families in tailored dress uniforms and designer dresses barely glanced his direction. Then 2 security guards appeared. The lead guard, badge glinting, leaned down with practiced authority. "Sir, this section is reserved for distinguished guests and families of honor graduates. You'll need to move to general seating." Marcus looked up slowly, his voice steady but quiet. "My son graduates today, Lieutenant Jacob Webb." The guard's expression hardened. "Your name's not on our list." Before Marcus could respond, hands gripped both his arms, lifting him from his seat. The flag nearly slipped from his grasp. Other families watched in uncomfortable silence, eyes averted, as the old man was escorted toward the exit without protest, without resistance. His dignity the only thing he carried. 3 days earlier, Marcus Webb had stood in his small apartment, staring at the only photograph on his walls. Jacob, 22 years old, stood in navy dress whites, eyes forward, jaw set with the same determination his mother once had. The frame was cheap, but the pride behind the glass was priceless. Marcus worked the night shift at County General, mopping floors and emptying trash bins in the oncology ward. He'd held the same job for 15 years, ever since the Navy medically retired him. On his bathroom counter, prescription bottles stood in neat rows beside a worn pill organizer. In the corner of his bedroom, a prosthetic leg leaned against the wall like a silent companion. Inside his dresser drawer, beneath folded socks and faded t-shirts, a purple heart rested in a velvet box he never opened. He didn't talk about the Navy. Not to coworkers, not to neighbors, not even to Jacob. When his wife died during Jacob's 7th grade year, Marcus made a promise at her grave. Their son would have every opportunity, every chance to become the man he was meant to be. The Naval Academy acceptance letter had cost Marcus everything. Credit cards maxed to cover application fees and travel. Meals skipped so Jacob could attend summer leadership camps. Double shifts turned into triple shifts. Jacob never knew. Marcus never wanted him to carry that weight. Some sacrifices were meant to be invisible, carried in silence by fathers who measured their worth not in recognition, but in the success of the children they raised alone. Now, standing in that reserved section with families who belonged, Marcus was being told the same thing the world had whispered to him for 15 years. You don't fit here. Stephen Pritchard wasn't just removing a guest. He was making an example. His voice carried across 3 rows, loud enough to ensure everyone understood his authority. Sir, this section is reserved for VIP families. Admirals, Senators, Medal of Honor recipients, not general public. He let the pause hang deliberately, his eyes scanning Marcus's threadbare suit, the scuffed shoes, the calloused hands that smelled faintly of industrial cleaner. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket, fingers trembling slightly as he produced the embossed invitation. Pritchard barely glanced at it before handing it back. This must be outdated. Or there's been a mistake. He turned to his partner, a younger guard who shifted uncomfortably. Radio the coordinators. Tell them we have an unauthorized guest in reserved seating. Marcus's voice remained steady, though softer now. My son is Lieutenant Jacob Webb. If you could just verify... Jacob Webb? Pritchard's tone suggested the name itself was suspicious. Sir, this is reserved seating. I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. Around them, families in pressed uniforms exchanged glances. An admiral's wife clutched her program tighter, her discomfort visible but her silence louder. A senator's aide whispered something to his companion. No one spoke up. No one moved. Marcus felt the weight of their stares, the judgment in their averted eyes. He thought about leaving, about slipping out quietly to spare Jacob the embarrassment of security removing his father on the most important day of his life. But Pritchard's hand was already on his arm, gripping just above the elbow with practiced firmness. Let's not make this difficult. As Marcus stood, his left leg buckled slightly, just a fraction of a second where his balance faltered. The prosthetic beneath his pant leg didn't flex the way flesh and bone should. He caught himself quickly, but not before Pritchard pulled harder, mistaking the stumble for resistance. The crowd's discomfort thickened into something almost tangible. Still no one intervened. Marcus's face showed no anger, no indignation. Only the quiet pain of a man who had endured far worse than this, who had learned that some humiliations must simply be survived in silence. Pritchard had taken 3 steps toward the exit, when a voice stopped him cold. Is there a problem here, guards? The voice carried the kind of authority that didn't need volume to command attention. 6 men in navy dress whites emerged from the VIP entrance, their tridents catching the morning sun like declarations of war. The leader stepped forward, mid-40s with weathered features and eyes that had seen things most men only imagined. Commander David Hawk Morrison didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Pritchard released Marcus's arm immediately, straightening like a cadet caught out of position. Commander, sir. We're removing an unauthorized guest from reserved seating. Standard protocol. Hawk's gaze moved past Pritchard to Marcus, and something flickered across his expression. Not recognition exactly, but the way a man recognizes another predator in the wild. Something in Marcus's bearing, the way he stood despite the humiliation, the silence that felt less like submission and more like discipline. What's your name, sir? Hawk asked, addressing Marcus directly. Marcus met his eyes, years of ingrained respect bringing his shoulders back slightly. Marcus Webb, sir. I'm here for my son Jacob's graduation. The shift in Hawk's expression was subtle but unmistakable. His jaw tightened. His stance changed. May I see your invitation? Marcus handed it over. Pritchard moved to intervene. Commander, we've already determined that... Hawk's look silenced him mid-sentence. Behind Hawk, one of the younger SEALs had pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly across the screen. He leaned in, whispered something. Hawk's entire demeanor transformed. He looked back at Marcus with something approaching reverence. Sir, what unit did you serve with? The question hung in the air. Marcus hesitated, his instinct always to deflect to avoid this exact conversation. But something in Hawk's tone made evasion feel disrespectful. SEAL Team 3, sir, Marcus said quietly. A long time ago. The other 5 SEALs had moved closer now, forming a loose semicircle. Their body language shifted from curious to something else entirely. Protective. Pritchard sensed the change but didn't understand it. The families watching didn't understand it either, but they felt it. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Hawk turned to Pritchard, and the temperature in the air seemed to drop 10 degrees. You need to release him. Now. His voice carried unmistakable steel, the kind of command that ended arguments before they began. Pritchard's confusion morphed into defensiveness. "Commander, with respect, I'm just doing my job." "This man isn't on the—" "This man," Hawk interrupted, stepping closer and raising his voice loud enough for every family within 20 feet to hear, "is Senior Chief Marcus Webb. He served 18 years with Naval Special Warfare. He was part of the rescue operation in Mogadishu when half the world looked away. He took shrapnel saving 4 men during an extraction in Helmand Province, lost his leg below the knee, and still carried 2 wounded teammates 300 meters to the LZ before he would accept medical evacuation." The ceremony grounds had gone completely silent. Programs stopped rustling. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the wind seemed to pause. Hawk gestured toward Marcus, whose face had gone pale with shock. "This man is the reason 3 of us standing here today are alive, including me." Marcus stared at Hawk, searching the weathered face for some thread of recognition. He didn't know these men, or did he? How many young candidates had passed through his instruction over the years? How many faces had blurred together in the chaos of deployments? "You were my butt-ass instructor, Senior Chief," Hawk continued, his voice softening but losing none of its intensity. "Class 237. You failed me twice on the obstacle course because you said I was rushing, trying to prove something instead of being something. Then you passed me on the 3rd attempt and told me I was ready, not because I got faster, because I got quieter." Recognition flickered in Marcus's eyes. "A younger face, 20 years and 1,000 missions ago. You were my team leader on my first deployment," Hawk said. "Afghanistan, 2003. You taught us what it meant to be a SEAL, not the tactics, not the weapons, the character, the restraint, the responsibility." The other 5 SEALs moved in unison, flanking Marcus like an honor guard. One of them, barely 30 with an admiral's bearing, stepped forward and began unpinning his trident from his dress whites. Marcus's hand shot up gently, stopping him. "No, son. That's yours. You earned it." The young SEAL's eyes glistened. "So did you, Senior Chief." Pritchard had gone pale, backing away slowly as if retreating from a battlefield he suddenly realized he'd never belonged on. Around them, families began to stand. First 1, then 5, then 20. In the front row, a 3-star admiral with ribbons covering his chest rose slowly and brought his hand to his brow in a crisp salute. Others followed. The crowd stood in silence, honoring the man they had watched being dragged away moments before, the janitor in the threadbare suit who had bled for them in wars they barely remembered. The ceremony was about to begin, the processional music already swelling from the speakers. Hawk placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, guiding him not back to his original seat but forward, to the front row. The seat of honor, directly center, where generals and dignitaries typically sat. Marcus resisted, shaking his head. "Commander, this isn't necessary. I just want to watch my son graduate." Hawk's expression softened, but his grip remained firm. "That's exactly what you're going to do, Senior Chief. From where you deserve to be." Before Marcus could take his seat, he did something no one expected. He turned back toward Pritchard, who stood frozen 15 feet away, his face ashen with humiliation and the dawning terror of consequences. Marcus walked toward him slowly, closing the distance. Pritchard looked like a man awaiting execution. Marcus extended his hand. The gesture hung in the air for a heartbeat, an offer of grace where judgment was expected. "No hard feelings, son," Marcus said quietly. "You were doing your job. I know I don't look like much." Pritchard's eyes welled with tears. His hand trembled as he shook Marcus's, his voice breaking. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have." Marcus nodded, placing his other hand on Pritchard's shoulder with the gentleness of a father. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them. Pritchard nodded, unable to speak, and retreated with his partner toward the back of the venue. The ceremony began. Graduates marched in formation, their dress whites pristine in the morning sun. Names were called. Commissions awarded. And then, Lieutenant Jacob Webb. Jacob crossed the stage with perfect military bearing, accepting his commission with a salute so crisp it could have been framed. As he turned, his eyes swept the crowd, searching for his father in the back rows where he expected him to be. Instead, he found him front and center, flanked by 6 SEALs standing at rigid attention. Hands raised in salute. Jacob's eyes widened. His father had never spoken about his service, never mentioned the Navy beyond saying he'd served, and certainly never mentioned being a SEAL. Marcus smiled, tears streaming down his weathered face, and returned his son's salute with the pride of a father who had given everything and asked for nothing in return. After the ceremony, Marcus and Jacob stood together in the shadow of the Academy's flagpole, father and son, warrior and legacy. Jacob's questions poured out, years of unknowing suddenly demanding answers. Marcus simply held him, the way he had when Jacob was 7, and the world felt too heavy for small shoulders. Hidden heroes walk among us every day. They don't wear their medals or speak of their sacrifices. They carry groceries, work night shifts, sit quietly in waiting rooms. They are janitors and teachers, bus drivers and nurses. Their humility is their armor, their silence their strength. The greatest warriors often look the least like warriors. They've already proven themselves. They have nothing left to prove. Today, before you judge someone by their appearance or dismiss them by their occupation, remember Marcus Webb. Remember that dignity, service, and sacrifice don't announce themselves with fanfare or demand recognition. They simply show up. They do the work. They raise the next generation of heroes in silence, expecting nothing, giving everything. Marcus and Jacob walked toward the parking lot together, side by side, the afternoon sun casting long shadows behind them. In the distance, 6 SEALs stood at attention, hands raised in final salute to the man who taught them what honor truly meant. If this story reminded you to look deeper, to honor the quiet heroes in your life, share it, because respect isn't given to those who demand it. It's owed to those who've earned it in silence.